to this computer. Okay,
Oh my.
there you are.
That is sad looking.
All right, let me go around here.
Well, we're both.
Hi there.
Hi.
I'm Julie Shaw. I'm on the board of directors at the Warren County Historical Society, and I am here with Bob and Jo McVey at their home in Monmouth, Illinois. And Bob and Jo are going to tell us a little bit about their heritage and their history. And today is February 9th. Today's Monday, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
2026. So here we go.
Okay.
I guess we'll get started by, tell us where you were born and when you were born.
Do you want to go first?
No, you go first.
Okay. I was born on August 21st, 1933 at Monmouth Hospital on East Euclid Avenue in Monmouth. And my parents' name was Margaret and Richard or Dick McVey Wright, Richard Wright McVey. They were both Monmouth people. My dad, for instance, was born on a farm just west of Monmouth on used to be, it's 164 now, and just about a mile and a half out of town. And he had a twin brother and then a sister. And they farmed 80 acres of land at that time. And my grandfather was a soybean raiser and had a few hogs. And during the Depression, they always told me about turning the hogs out because the corn was worth more than the hogs. So they went through some rough times.
Sure.
And then now, do you want me to go on my dad, or do you, or shall I get in on my mother for next?
Oh, well, if you like.
My
Yeah.
mother was Margaret Foster. She had four sisters and two brothers. At Foster Brothers Restaurant that was on North Main or on the square was Harold and Fred Foster. And the amazing thing is the four girls married dealers in town in cars. We didn't talk cars at the 4th of July gathering because one was a Ford dealer and one was a DeSoto Plymouth
Oh,
and the other one was a Hudson Terraplane. So I guess there were three. They did not talk cars on that particular day, but and they were in the automobile business.
yeah. Okay.
And Jo?
I was born on a farm in Henderson County, just over the Henderson County line.
Mhm.
And I was born to a farming family and was raised, and it was a great way for a child to be raised in that era. I went to I went to a little one-room schoolhouse for my 1 through 8. There were no kindergartens back in those days. But I was raised on a farming family, and when you were raised on a farm, everybody works
Oh, for
when
sure.
it comes to the farm.
7/7/39 was your birthdays.
I was going to mention that. I remembered it was July of 1939, but I
Yes.
couldn't remember the day actually. So, how many brothers and sisters did you
I have
Jo?
one brother,
Oh, okay.
and my family were farmers,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and it's a great way for a child to be.
Hard work, huh?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Learn to work.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So, your mother, what was her name?
Myrtle, she was a McCurry.
Okay.
There's quite a few of them.
Mm-hmm.
And the Dares were all Warren County people too.
Okay. And your dad's name was, did I miss that?
No, Howard.
Howard.
Howard. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Alrighty.
And my mother was a McCurry. She was
Mhm.
Myrtle McCurry.
But back in those days, your dad farms for other people for a while
Really?
before he ended
That's
up
right.
getting a farm of his
Yeah.
own, which was just north of Monmouth.
My mother was deaf.
Oh,
And of course, back in those days, they didn't have all the stuff.
things.
Yeah, they didn't have all the knowledge that they have for treatment and for helping people.
Mhm.
But and a hearing aid back in those days was so costly.
I can imagine.
And Dad said he had to sell. Oh, I don't remember now. Just to buy a hearing aid.
Oh, yeah. Hmm.
And it was interesting being a child of a person that had hearing problems. Um,
Did you know sign language or anything
no,
like that?
no, we didn't. We weren't that sophisticated. No, and she had brothers and sisters
Mhm.
that supported her. She had scarlet fever when she was 4 years old,
Okay. Uh-huh.
and she lost her hearing at that point.
Okay.
And I was raised like any other kid. I just had to yell at my mother to get her to hear.
Oh, well, what was your earliest memory as a child?
We were farmers,
Hmm.
and everybody worked.
Yeah. Okay.
And I can remember I raised chickens first.
Oh, okay.
I had chickens, and then I didn't get to have a steer or a cow until I was probably um, I was probably about
Were you in 4-H?
12. Yeah, I was in 4-H. I was probably about 12
Oh, okay.
when I first had my first animals
Uh-huh.
that I was responsible for. I was
Okay.
raised on a farm. So,
Uh-huh. And you were in 4-H.
yes.
Yeah. How was that?
Uh,
Did you show your steer at the fairs and
Yeah.
that sort of thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. Slept with the steer
Oh,
down in Henderson County
okay.
Fair.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, we had to monitor our livestock when they were in there.
Yeah.
So
Bob, what was your earliest memory as a child?
I'm having trouble with that because it was probably when I was maybe 4 or 5 years old. I remember going to the Methodist church, and it was on East Broadway, and sitting in the little chairs in Sunday school and on Sundays. And then playing in the sandbox was a biggie for me at first grade.
Mhm.
And so that's probably the earliest that I can remember.
Mhm.
Uh, my I had two brothers, brother Jim and brother Dick. Dick being 10 years older and Jim being 18 months older.
Oh.
And so Dick I suppose, kind of helped raise us until he went off to the service, which when he went to the service during World War II, he was probably 18 and backed me up. I would have been 8.
Uh-huh.
So I remember of us being a family, but Dick was primarily gone most of the time, and brother Jim was always picking on me. So that was normally brother. And we lived on East Fifth Avenue, and my dad at that time was in partners with H.A. Martin, who had the DeSoto Plymouth in later days. They had a small garage next to Bill Chapin's grocery store. And if you today would go down Fifth Avenue, there's one block of street that's concrete. And because they had a business and it was always muddy, they put in a concrete street that's still there today.
Oh, my goodness.
And Dad always said that during the Depression, they didn't really have it too tough because he could overhaul a Model A in one day and make $5,
Oh.
which back in those days, a lot of people didn't make $5 in a month.
Oh, my
So,
goodness,
and I
yeah.
don't suppose he did it every day, but
Mhm.
I never had any in my life. I've never missed a meal or slept on. I've slept on the ground till when Uncle Sam got a hold of me, but before that, I always had a bed. So, so
Did you have to sleep in the same bed with your
no,
brothers?
we always had our own bed,
Yeah.
to my knowledge.
Uh-huh.
Well, now that I think about it, Jim and I did have one bed, but I don't remember of him. He probably was on my side. I probably just had what was left.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, the rest of the world was that way too. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
How about plumbing in the house? Did you have?
we had running water.
Oh, did
Now
you?
you had outhouses.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay.
on the first house. Uh, and it was,
Funny thing in later life when Joe and I moved to the farm and that would have been, oh my.
Julie was there
to-
when we moved to the farm.
Yeah, that was just maybe 15 years ago. I did buy an outhouse and put it up. So we did have an active outhouse at just 15
For
years ago.
emergencies.
Well, no, I don't remember of us ever using it, but I bought it at a sale for $10 and put $150 shake roof on it. I do remember that.
Oh, golly. So do you know how your family came to this area? Do you know about your ancestors, where they came from, or?
I would assume that Grandpa brought us here and he was a farmer. And I do know that we go back to where we came from, the Isle of Man off of the coast of England. And because I've had one of Dad's, we had a twin brother and a sister, and the sister did visit the Isle of Man and brought us, because that's they're known for the three-legged cat without a tail, I think it is. And she brought me a plaque, and we have a crest that the McVeys had in Isle of Man.
Okay.
But
Okay. So where did you two go to school? Just in the area, I'm assuming.
I went to grade school at a little one-room schoolhouse
Okay.
out by the farm.
Mhm.
And my seventh grade year, Little York developed a program for seventh and eighth graders. So
Okay.
we thought we were uptown then.
Oh, I bet, yeah.
And then I went to Little York to high
Mhm.
school.
Okay.
and I went to Central Grade School on East Second Avenue, and went there till I was in the fourth grade. I went through, and this is maybe something interesting along the line. I don't make a big issue out of it, but they held me back in the fourth grade because I was having difficulty in reading, and they found that later in life that I had dyslexia. And
Okay.
of course, back in those days, Joe's always said you could have that corrected in today's life, but and that was always a holdback to me all the way through my life, because I even went to the principal at the high school when we moved back to well, I'm getting ahead of myself. When I was there to the fifth grade, and then we moved to Moline, my dad ran the Moline Airport during World War II, taught people how to fly from, because he owned the Monmouth Airport with his brother, Bob, and in earlier life. And then I can tell you more about that one too. But anyway, I did go to a one or two room country school where we had one teacher that ran from room to room and took
Really?
care of all grades. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
I went to country school too.
Uh-huh.
And my first day at school,
Oh,
I
yes.
found this wonderful little mechanical entity. I probably told you this.
I don't remember.
you could take a pencil and stick into it and then sharpen it by, and
Uh-huh.
I was fascinated by
Oh,
that.
my goodness.
And when the other kids went out for recess, I stayed in and sharpened everybody's pencils. Some
Oh,
of them
gosh.
were down like this. And it was the first day of school.
Oh, that's fun. Yeah. Oh, that's fun. So, you graduated from high school when?
I graduated in 1952. But I want to take you back to my dad being in the airport.
Yes.
He ran the Monmouth Airport, and that would have been in the around 37 through 40.
Mhm.
And on the 4th of July, down at that time, it was on North 6th Street. And then the east-west runway was grass that ran from 6th Street to 11th, and that come right out by the park. And back in those days, the 4th of July and everything, everybody went to the park. There'd be 3,000 people at the park picnicking and baseball games and all.
Uh-huh.
And my dad and uncle had bought a new airplane, and they had two, and they moved down at the park end and was hauling passengers to help pay for the new airplane and all. And my uncle came in to land, and the city of Monmouth had a arrangement to put up a pole for a balloon descension that they were to do at 5 o'clock. But the crew got here early and put it up at 2 o'clock. And my uncle came in and didn't see it and pulled up and crashed and killed him and two other passengers. There was a baby, and a mother died, and the man, I believe, is the one that didn't. And so, and of course, my dad being an identical twin, the only way they could tell them apart at that time. And I can remember pulling in with my mother, wasn't driving. I would have been, well, in 40, I would have been 8 years old. And Brother Jim and I had gone with Mom out to the airport to see if Dad needed lunch. And we just saw the airplane go into the ground.
Oh.
And my dad's brother, Bob, during life had cut my dad's little finger off. And that was one of the identifications of two. So when they went to the crash site, they didn't know which one was in the airplane, because the other one was still flying behind him.
Oh,
And
my.
they checked the right hand, and he had his fingers, so it was my uncle. But
Goodness.
that's something that's always been the 4th of July. My mother wouldn't let my dad fly because he flew daily,
Uh-huh.
many hours. But on the 4th of July, he had to stay on the ground.
My goodness. I bet that was quite a memory for
Oh, it
you.
really was,
Yeah.
but Mother made Jim and I stay in the car, and I can't believe it. We probably did. I don't remember getting out, but
Mhm.
then of course she was tears,
Oh, yeah.
and it was quite a day.
Oh,
But I can remember
goodness.
pulling into the field just as the airplane went into the ground, and I have pictures of that too.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. But later went on up to Moline Airport afterwards, because they, at that time, the two of them had the Hudson Terraplane Garage on North Main. And so they had two businesses really going. And of course, that put an end to, they had to pay for the airplane that was crashed, and
Mhm.
it devastated my dad for
Oh, yeah.
years
No
financially.
insurance at that
Yeah,
time?
well, I don't think so, or they didn't honor it or something.
Oh, my.
So I know it took putting back, and of course that having a twin and then spending a lifetime with him, and then all at once not having him,
Right.
that had to affect Dad, I'm sure. Yeah.
So let's see. Well, we'll go back to, and you graduated and you said
Graduate,
52?
came back here in about 1949 I'd spent my senior year at Monmouth High School.
Okay.
And so I graduated in 1952
Mhm.
when Uncle Sam invited us to maybe go to Korea or we had a choice of joining a service,
Uh-huh.
and 5 of us from here in town decided that the Navy looked like 3 hots in a cot looked better than a foxhole in Korea. So we went Navy,
Mm-hmm.
and I ended up and after boot camp, spent 4 years in an airplane flying around the coast of Korea, taking pictures as an aerial photographer for 4
Interesting.
years. And the amazing thing is Bunky Scott, who lives here in town,
Mhm.
he and I had grown up from playing little cars in the mud back when we were maybe 4 or 5 years old. We went to the service and spent 3 out of the 4 years together in the same squadron. Yes. And he was in supplies, which later on went into SIG, which was an auto supply one here in town.
Uh-huh.
And I went to work for Brother Dick at the clothing store, the model clothing.
And what did you say? How many years in?
That was
in the Navy?
1956. We signed up for
Okay.
4 years.
Oh,
That
mhm.
was our college.
Yeah.
It was the hard knocks compared to going to,
For
to
sure.
Monmouth or Western or something of that nature.
Yeah. And Joe, you graduated from Little York, you
Mhm.
said. And
Mhm.
did you attend college at all?
I attended Monmouth College for
Okay.
1 year,
1 year.
Yeah.
Okay.
and then I went to work.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was too much of a burden for Dad.
Yeah.
So I went to work in,
You worked for Roger Johnson at the courthouse.
yeah,
Okay. How long did you work there?
3 years, I think.
Okay.
I think it was 3 years, and then we moved to Colorado,
Oh,
to
She got
Denver.
married and moved to Colorado.
okay. How long did you spend in Colorado?
I think we were there 7 years,
Okay.
and
Tell her about you being the secretary for the hospital and writing grants for the helicopters.
I worked for St. Anthony Hospital in
Mhm.
Denver.
Okay.
And it was of all the jobs I had over the years, that's probably my next to my favorite. uh, no, it was quite an experience. They were in a building program in the hospital. I think that's probably true throughout the country.
Right. Mhm.
They're always under construction in
Mhm.
some way. But we moved back here. The kids Dana was going to start kindergarten.
Okay. Who?
Dana.
Dana.
My
Oh,
oldest
okay.
child.
Yep.
And the school system in Denver was so overwhelmed because all the migration that was going on at that period of time, during that period of time.
Mhm.
And so
That would have been around 70 to 72 in that era.
yeah.
Okay. Mhm.
And so I picked the kids up and we came back here. And
She's missing one real biggie because she went in and she really liked the ER emergency room where you worked with a lot of people, but they saw that you had talent and ended up being a secretary for the executive of the
Sister Mary Eileen.
Well, the hospital, because it was a
Catholic hospital.
hospital.
Uh-huh.
But that's where I think she inherited her leadership, which later on you know more about.
Yes, I do. Yeah. And you started at Warren Achievement Center in 1972?
Yes,
Probably.
because we got
I
married in
remember.
72.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So how did you two get together?
Well, I was looking for a female friend, and I was choosy, so I went to Warren Achievement with John Toll. Mary may have been working out there at the time, his wife. So I went out to see who this gal that he was telling me about, this Dara girl, or so at that time it was not Dara any longer, but Papinal. So I went out and she first of all wouldn't go out with me. because she thought I was still married at the time, but I hadn't. And a little later down the line, when we got married in 72, my first wife and she are cousins. And
really?
we became not kissing cousins. And Jo started Born Achievement. She'll tell you more, but as I remember, she was keeping books in the hall of the school, and because it was a school at that time, and they
I
saw
had
that
recess when the kids had recess.
and then the board decided that she should, well, you should tell this. The board decided that you should look for, after Mr. Strom all at once gave a couple of weeks' notice and was gone as president of Warren Achievement. And Warren Achievement was small at that time. I can remember of 3 different sites, or 2 different sites that Warren Achievement was at prior to being in the school where you two worked.
Yeah.
And so, go ahead. I don't.
1974, I believe you became the president. Yes.
And she had to go out and survey for one, and they finally gave up and said, You're doing the job. Why don't you just do it?
Yeah.
And Jo says, well, I'm not qualified.
I don't have all the whistles and bells.
College degree and all the bells and whistles. And they said, Jo, you're doing the job, and we're the board.
And I hired this fantastic secretary.
Oh, I thought it
You
was
left
one.
that part out.
I thought the one you didn't like.
I think you actually had a couple.
No, she had a couple before you.
Yeah. Dorothy Essex.
Yes.
And Phyllis Shaman.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then me in 1992. That's when I became your secretary.
Yeah.
Actually, I started in 1985. But anyway, this isn't about me.
Well, but you're included. But when you live in a small town, that is not uncommon.
I know it.
But we're not blood.
Right.
She bailed me out of a lot of things.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh.
Those were the days.
Yeah. Well,
After I came back from the service in 1956, my brother Dick had inherited the model clothing company on East Broadway. And he wrote me a letter during that, and he said, now, when you get out of the service, I don't know what you want to do, but he said, if you're looking for a job, I'll give you one at the clothing store. It won't be the most profitable one that you'll ever could have had, but it's clean, and you're in the winter, and in the cool of the hot summer, we have air. So I decided to try that and worked for him and the business grew. It had been a clothing store and John Turnbull will be interested because we always fought for being the oldest store in town. But in 1854 was when the model went into business, and I can't tell you the name. He was one from New York that came and started the clothing store in the building on East Broadway that. The building still stands, and it still has the model clothing in the doorway of it when you go in. But and so I worked with him for 30 years before he wanted to retire and or cut way back. And so he offered me half the store, and so I was his partner for 8 years, and we decided in 1993. And it was difficult for me because I was involved. I'd been on the board of the city council. I'd been with economical development, which we were trying to make Monmouth grow. And of course, I went through a period of about 3 months knowing that we were going to close the store, and that was a lump in my throat. But you couldn't let things be known at that day until at the very time when you decided to do it. And couple of weeks later, it was all done. So we put we announced it in 93, and in 1994, we did no business as the model clothing company or Her Closet.
Uh-huh.
The men's business grew, and as the men's manufacturers grew, they went into the ladies' business. And the first that we had Manhattan white shirts, or their dress shirts, in the men's department. And we also had a boys' department at the same time, from little guys like from 6 years old on up.
Mhm.
And then the ladies' department, because Lady Manhattan came from manufacturers from Manhattan Shirt Company. And then there was Jansen that had both men and ladies, and Pendleton that had the men, and the brands that were men's went into the ladies' business, and that really forced us into opening a larger store next to us as Her Closet.
Yeah.
And to not to abandon the men's business, to get to Her Closet, you had to go through the men's department to get there. So and we were there until 1994, when we did no more business, and Joe allowed me to go to the country and work on a house. And she wanted to move back to the country. You can bring a farm girl to town, and if she's nice, she'll kind of live with you. But if you just mention the country, you're back out in the country. And
You can
that's
take
where
a girl out of the farm, but you can't take the farm out of the girl.
you're right. And today she would move to the farm at a drop of a hat. But I think we're past that, don't you?
And we're past moving,
Yeah,
period.
that's a lot of work.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. So let's see, back to Warren Achievement Center. After you became president, it just grew from that point, didn't it?
She did a good job.
She did.
And they were looking for somebody in the rural area that was expanding, that they could go into these Meals on Wheels and transportation department, and a lot of the grants that she wrote during that period.
When you
Or
say
you may
she
have
wrote,
written them along with her, but
she happens to know about that writing grants. We were lucky because we came in at the right time when developmental disabilities was being recognized as a
Right.
valid
Yeah.
problem. And the fact that families didn't have alternatives. And so we were in that period of time that developed the programs for both the mentally ill and the developmental disabilities.
Right. And it's such a good thing. It's a good
Yeah,
thing.
and it's something that'll carry on because there's no cure for those problems. So yes, it was a battle with the legislature to get them to recognize the issues and the problems. And so
and she had some criticisms because of a lot of the down people said, well, she's never here in Monmouth. Well, Joe found out very quickly
I have a secretary that knows that.
the money comes from Springfield and Chicago, and for you to get the money that makes the organization go, you have to go after the money and go to the place where the money's at. And so Joe did that and stood the criticism from the locals. And then one of her big things that she had to overcome was because Warren Achievement had people moving to town to have their child go to Warren Achievement School, which was a one-on-one type of operation. And then the state come along and said, you will mainstream your client. And I was at a meeting when she had to announce to her parents that of the clients that she was going to have to mainstream their kids. And they wanted to tar and feather her right at that meeting. but then she kept saying, it's not my decision, it's the state's decision. And so she did convince, I do believe you convinced the state to allow you to continue for 2 years and to phase it out. Is that kind of what happened?
I don't remember the 2 years, but the state, I was fortunate because I developed some friends that were at the state level that would work for me in getting some of the grants that we got. And yeah, those were not good days.
Yeah.
But we were fortunate because a lot of agencies went down during that period of time.
And
Well-
1995 was the last year of Warren Achievement School.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And that was a community thing because people in the community were so proud of that program because the community had really gotten behind it and helped it grow.
It was more publicly known about, I don't know that, of course, we don't have a local paper anymore, so there aren't the interviews or what's going on. I'm sure that Warren Achievement is still doing a good job, but I don't see it publicly, well, because we aren't involved in it anymore. That again could be the problem, but it's still a tremendous organization. We had a niece that went in at probably age of 7. Don't you suppose Sally went in there about then? Might have been a little older. But anyway, the reason that Warren Achievement came to life was there were 6 businessmen here in town. Brother Dick was one of them that had children coming on that they knew that they had special needs. And at that time, their future was mental health place in Galesburg. And where there's no development at all, it's just an existing. From what I remember, it may not be true at all, but that was what it's not what they wanted. And so the 6 people, one being an attorney, kind of took a hold of it, and they all wanted their kids to have better.
Right.
And so it started on as I remember it, because I used to go down to it, would be over on West 10th Street in the 300 block in a small little house. Was the first Warren Achievement. And then from there, they moved to the abandoned school, which is across from Farm King. And they were there for a number of years. And then I think at that point, they decided to build something. You didn't build the school where it is, did you? It was there when Strom was there?
The Eversoles and Bursteads.
Well, they were 2 of the 6.
They're the ones that were operating the school and started the development of the.
Dan Kistler's dad was one of them.
Well,
Buff Hoddle.
Yeah.
As I remember, there were 6 businessmen, and they all did it because they had a need.
Yeah.
I mean, it was, and then of course, once it got going, then, like I say, people moved to Monmouth to go to that school because their kids some were that were in the shape to where if they could ever teach them to potty change, was a development.
I don't think.
Well, that's what I always heard. So.
And I remember when we developed the group homes, when you developed some of the group homes, there were neighbors that were upset about, those people moving in next door. And, thankfully, I think attitudes have changed, hopefully, since.
Yeah, I think
But
so.
they were good, clean run outfits.
Yes,
I mean,
absolutely.
so that did not become a problem later, I don't believe.
Yeah.
No, I don't think that's ever been an issue.
It was at the first.
Yeah.
Well, they didn't know what was going to go in there.
Right.
Yeah. But we were lucky that we had the support with the Eversoles and the Bursteads because they understood
Right.
the problem.
Yeah.
Well, and Hoddle being an attorney.
Yeah.
And Channing Pratt, I believe, was involved, but maybe not. He didn't
No,
have a
Channing
child.
wasn't
Then it was Hoddle.
involved.
Buff Hoddle was the attorney.
Okay.
Bill Hines was one of the Smiths.
See,
Sorry.
move that back.
You mentioned the Methodist Church back in the early days. You two still are members of the
Mhm.
Methodist Church?
Yes,
Yeah.
I can remember going and sitting in one of the little chairs that sold for $5 later in life, but on Sunday morning.
Uh-huh.
And then we were very active. And then when I went to Moline to live for 5 years up there, I went to school or to church at the school where I went in the daytime. For that, I went on, they had a Sunday program.
Uh-huh.
And then come back here and went back into the Methodist Church, more active.
Uh-huh.
And
What are some of your childhood memories of the church and attending church?
Well,
Other than sitting in the little chair, like
Yeah.
you said.
yeah, I think Jesus and Christ was there at the same
At the
time.
same
Yeah,
time.
yeah, I think they've been there the whole time. I had a problem with the Methodist Church because Joe and I was active. When I met Joe back in it would have been 72. She was staying with her folks at the time and working for Warren Achievement
I had your job.
and playing,
Yes,
yes, and
uh-huh.
playing the piano at the Gerlaw Christian Church. And so
Okay.
when we started courting and all, then I would go out there to listen to her play the piano on Sunday and to be with her. And so I really stole their piano player and brought her to Monmouth, and she played the piano at Monmouth for just till a year and a half ago or a year ago. She retired
Oh
from
my goodness.
doing that.
Oh, do you have a
And-
piano here that you
Oh,
play?
yes,
Oh,
yes. She's
good.
Yeah,
Yeah, she-
that front bedroom.
Oh,
Well, she normally, when somebody comes because of her crafts and stuff, she keeps that door closed. So,
uh-huh.
I don't
But,
think I got it closed today.
but I was very active in keeping maintenance and working on keeping the church up. And then I fought very hard for us to remodel the old church,
Mhm.
and that. There was some bad things, in my opinion, happened during that period where they decided that certain ones were going to have a new church. And so when they tore the old church down, I went across to Heritage,
Oh,
the same Lord's over there.
right.
And so, and then it got to where just maybe a year, not quite a year ago, when she decided not to play the piano anymore. I thought, well, maybe it's the first time in our married life we could go to church and sit together.
Oh, hey.
Yeah. So see, I'm still trying to court her.
Of course.
How's it working?
Not shaky sometimes. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, golly. Well, what other stories, old stories do you want to tell?
Go for it. I'll think while you're.
About your kids or grandkids?
I was thinking about when I first came to work. I had lived in Denver, and my
Uh-huh.
kids were in the Denver school systems. And I was unhappy with the school systems out there because they were just being deluged with people
Yeah.
moving into the area, and the teachers, the classrooms were huge.
Oh. Mhm.
And so I pulled the kids out of school
Mhm.
out in Denver and moved back here.
And that's when we changed your name too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I tried hard, but it didn't work.
Oh.
Yeah. Joe and I have had a great life together because we had a lot of interests. They said I'm a builder, and I maybe should have been a carpenter all my life, but when we got into when we got married, we moved from a house, which I had at the time we got married, and went into houses, and then we expanded. Seems like anytime we buy a house, we just love it until we get in it, and then you got to change everything inside. And we've done that at every house. But she wanted to go back to the farm, and so we bought an old farm site, just 11 acres, and took an old farmhouse and butchered it for 3 years.
Right.
And we enjoyed that.
Kept you off the streets, didn't it?
Yes, it did. Yes, it did. Yeah, there was something else, and I've lost track of that. But go ahead, maybe I'll come up with it.
You put quite an addition on that house out in the country.
Oh my,
Yeah.
yes.
Mhm.
It went from, I think, maybe 1,500. It was an old farmhouse.
Mhm.
They had put the toilet inside, but and when we got to moving, I sat down, and after we closed the store, I had a little money, and I said, Joe, we're going out here and buy this farm, because we were looking for a place in the country that was closer to Fort Madison, because we had a houseboat down there, and we spent every weekend. And there was for 2 reasons for that. We both enjoy after I got her in a boat that had a toilet.
Oh.
Now it was pushing till we got that done, but once it had a toilet, then she was willing to go, and the kids, all we had to do is say we're going to the river, and we took 2 kids from 2 families and put them together.
Mhm.
And it's not uncommon to find all 4 of them at the same thing today.
Oh,
So
yeah.
we've been blessed by that.
Yeah.
And we built out there at the farm. We went from, I think, maybe 1,500 feet to almost 4,000 feet. It was a large house. She likes large.
Mhm.
And then when we came I decided, and it was more my decision, and she's been pulling nails since, but I thought at when I was 85 that maybe it was time to come to town.
Okay.
And you're leaving the fun and productive years, not that you're totally sit on a chair, but health could be an issue at any one time.
Mhm.
And it was getting to where at 85 the farm was maybe a little more than I
More
needed.
than you- yeah.
And we were houseboating, and while we built the house, then we sold the houseboat and went into a motor home and started going to rallies and going to Tucson during the winter. And so we thought downsizing was maybe the thing to do. So we went from 4,000 to 2,000. So we still got a pretty good size house,
For sure.
and maybe bigger, but we enjoy it. And so, and some of the things that was fun for me during the years was the city council, until because of the way I voted on liquor licenses, we lost all the liquor accounts at the model, and Brother Dick would take me to the basement and talk about that. And because they wanted to freeze the liquor licenses back at that time. And I said, okay, now you have to remember that when the Holiday Inns come out here at the edge of town and want to build a nice hotel and a motel, you're going to tell them, because I want to go with you, that you're not going to get a liquor license. And
that could be trouble.
nobody could argue over that. So
Yeah.
they opened the liquor licenses up. Not that I wanted to flood the town with alcohol, but to restrict something like that we had the control of licensing. And so they still have control over the licensing. So that was one of the things. I was on the first where you could secretly report Crime Stoppers.
Oh,
I was
okay.
one of the first to be on the Crime Stoppers board
Okay.
for Warren County. And then I'm involved with Community Care Days, which is a group of 13 churches local that we once a year now, it was 2 times a year, that if you had a need in your home and you were at the age where you couldn't do it, and not that you couldn't afford it, but you just couldn't do it. If you put on an application, we would replace your old windows or build a ramp for someone that needed a wheelchair ramp and all that. So I've been really involved in it it started at the Methodist Church in Fairview Center, and the Monmouth Methodist joined it, and then it went citywide with all the churches. And so and it's great because you get all the church people together of all the different faiths, and we're working for the same guy.
Right.
So
That's that in common, don't you?
That's been a real plus.
That in common, yeah.
Yes.
Good for you.
So I've had I think I've had a very interesting, probably bored you people to death, but I've had a real interesting and maybe a productive life.
For sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
And at 92, still going pretty strong.
Yeah, I'll say.
Yeah.
You have a lot of energy.
Well, that's because I'm well cared for.
Oh.
Don't push it.
You got any more things, or did we run you out of paper?
I think we pretty much covered anything, unless everything, unless you have thought of something else that you want to talk about.
I will after you're gone, but
Yeah, I know.
but I think we covered.
Going back to Warren Achievement
Yes.
Center, those early days, the community was really involved in the
Yeah.
development of that. And Lou Ebersole, of course, headed up this whole project. And she
And Helen
deserves,
Burstead, they were
Yes.
buddies.
yeah, and Helen Burstead, and they really deserve all the credit that you can muster for them.
I remember all the pictures from
Yeah.
back then, and
Yeah,
they were.
But they were two wives of people of the six people that wanted to
Got
go
it
do it
started,
because of their
yeah.
children.
Of course.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, who wants their child to go to an institution?
right.
Oh,
Back
no.
in those days, that's all that was available.
I know it. I know.
I can remember can't think of their name right now. Came in to see me about what can be done to get services here locally. And I can remember that. I can see their face, but I can't think of their name right now. But anyway, we worked really hard and we solved it.
Yeah. Well, good.
Well, and you had to go and put yourself on the line with Warren, the county board,
county
because
board.
you needed to get
That was
into.
not their favorite child.
I realized that because I would be at the dinner table when you'd come home and express your feelings. So, but you still got it done and got.
I had a secretary that
Knew some of this stuff.
yeah.
But she can verify that we're not telling secrets or we're telling as close to the truth as old age will let us remember. But
I had a secretary that was just wonderful.
Oh.
She was always there and she was always ready to change something or
Well,
do something.
I was raised with a good work ethic too.
Yes.
I came from a family of 7 siblings, so
Oh, did you really?
yeah, I was the oldest.
Oh,
I am the oldest. Yeah.
Yeah.
It hasn't changed.
No, it
has
hasn't changed.
I left out one brother, and I mentioned Jim taking half the better part of it and all. But he had a successful life too. He went to Monmouth College, graduated, and got an award from Central Junior High School as a person that has advanced and did well, and was in the Navy for, I think, 3 years as an officer, and ended up running Oscar Mayer, a little hog outfit, for
Yes.
about 8 years before he retired with Parkinson's.
Yes, yeah.
So each one of us in our own little way, I think, contributed. But I also had to remember that my mother had 3 in the service and we're all gone at one time.
Oh, my goodness.
So
they don't allow that anymore, do they?
you can't go together.
Right.
But Dick was 10 years older and was really out of the service when we went in because
Okay.
the World War II was over, and the Korean was what got me and then Jim come out of Monmouth College, and that would have been 54, 53 or 4, and and he was married to a local girl here, Dr. Lauder's daughter, Wheezy. Louise.
Oh.
And but I think we're pretty well told everything that you
So,
and I have ever thought about.
You have 4 children, a blended family.
Yes,
And how many grandchildren now? Can you count them?
Oh,
yes. Grandchildren, we have 4. Maggie and Mitchell
yeah,
and Steve and Mark.
yeah.
And then they've all married, and we've added some more, and we now have 3 very active great
Oh
grandchildren.
my goodness.
Matt's has a pair of 2 that are identical boys,
Oh.
and
And
they
they
don't
are
have
identical.
they don't have any energy at all.
Right.
You ever had a toy that you wound up to the tightest and let loose? That would be them. Yeah.
Well, I have certainly enjoyed the conversation. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this. I just love you
Well,
guys.
thank you
Well,
so
thank
much
you. You
for
made
being
it
my
very easy to do.
secretary.
I told you you'd have to shut me off. So.
Yeah, well, that's okay. I'd rather have you 2 do the talking. So again, thank you so much, Joe and Bob. And we're gonna close out here. Let's see, I better save. And we're gonna end this. Great.